Mark Skaar on the Skaar Kaard on 103.7 The Fox. Proud to welcome in Mr. Kasim Sulton. How are you, sir?
I am very well, Mark. It's really good to talk to you. Thank you for having me. I appreciate it.
My pleasure. I love Kasim 2021. I have not been able to put this record down. Congratulations.
Well, that makes me feel really good. That's the whole idea, isn't it? To have people really gravitate towards it and enjoy it. Even parts, a little bit, a lot of it, or the whole thing.
I think in whole, it's wonderful. It really reminds me of for some reason, the latest Paul McCartney record.
Oh, wow. That's pretty interesting. Thank you very much. I mean, anytime somebody gets compared to a Beatle, it's always a good thing.
I hear a lot of Beatle-esque things in this record. Would you concur with that?
Of course. I'm a huge Beatle fan. It's the reason that I started playing music, or that I made a commitment to a career in music, was that February of 1964 when my jaw dropped and I was like, that's what I want to do for the rest of my life, when I saw the Beatles on Ed Sullivan. Like so many other musicians that have the same exact story. So it only stands to reason that would play a big role in the way that I approach my own music and what I like to put out to the public, which is, that stuff that's just that Beatle-y kind of music, I guess, for lack of a better term.
Works for me. I'm with Kasim Sulton talking about Kasim 21. I would presume that work began on this pre-pandemic.
Correct. We started this record in 2019. I was in England visiting some friends. I went to my buddy Phil Thornalley's studio. He asked me if I think it was November of 2019. He asked me if I had any plans to record a new record. I said no, I did not. And he said, do you have any ideas written, any songs written, or snippets of songs, which, as songwriters, everybody does that. You have a little idea here and there. I played him some stuff, and he said, we should record a record together. You should do another solo album. I'll produce it. And I said, Phil, sounds like a wonderful idea. Let's go. So we came up with about 3 songs from those first sessions, and then it just kind of organically took over from there, and before we knew it, we had a whole album.
Talking to Kasim Sulton, record kicks off with More Love, certainly a very poignant thing to start a record off with.
Yeah, I mean, that was the last song that we recorded for the record. We had 11 songs at that point done, and Phil said, we need one more song. Let's take a look at what we have so far. So we looked at the record as a whole at that point and said, okay, we have a couple of fast songs. We have a couple of mid-tempo songs. We have a ballad. We have another 2 or 3 slow songs. But what we don't have is a real good positive message mid-tempo song that speaks to the world at large, if you will. And that's where the idea for More Love came in.
Super catchy chorus on that.
Thank you very much. Yeah, it's a really, really, really good song. I'm very, very proud of. I'm proud of this whole record. But that's just a really nice song to start a record off with. Current
single is Fast Car, which is just a power pop delight.
Yeah, that's a perfect example of needed an up-tempo, in-your-face, aggressive song, and Phil came up with the idea for Fast Car, and it just fit. It fit perfectly because we didn't have to make a spot for it on the record. We didn't have to lose anything to put that one on. And funny enough, a lot of people are gravitating towards that song. It's just a really, really kind of a catchy pop record.
Talking to Kasim Sulton, I see there's a lot of love on your Facebook page for Sweetest Fascination as well.
That's one of my favorite songs. I mean, they're all favorites of mine. They're all like children. I think Billy Joel likened his songs to children, and some of them you hope that they go to college, some just graduate high school, but you have high hopes for all of them. And so that's one of my favorite songs on the record because that's the kind of stuff that I feel I do best, that mid-tempo, kind of Hall & Oates-ish pop music, Billy Joel, a little Billy Joel influence in there.
I like God Kicked the Stone, the part where you're laughing and you said you should be smart. It sounds like you were distracted in there, but I thought it was interesting that you kind of laughed the vocal there.
You are correct, actually. That is exactly what happened. I was doing the lead vocal in London with Phil at his place. Sometimes, because once the pandemic happened, we couldn't, there was no traveling. So we did the rest of the record file sharing, just sending stuff back and forth to each other. So that one I was in England for, and Phil might have done something or made a face or something like that, and I just started laughing, and he decided that he was going to keep it.
I think it's great.
Thank you. Thanks.
Unsung, obviously, is a kind of an homage to, I guess, kind of the sideman, as it were.
Yeah, that was one of the first songs that we came up with for the record, and I am very proud of that song. I really like the way that song is put together. It was a really fun song to record, and the subject matter, it really speaks to me because it's about my career. It's really about me and my place in music and how I look at stuff, and it's very, very autobiographical.
Kasim, how did you pick the Nick Lowe cover?
I like to do covers on my records. My first solo record that well, not my first solo record, but I did a solo record back in 2004 called Quid Pro Quo. Actually, I did 2 cover songs on that record. There's a song by the Finn brothers, Neil and Tim Finn, called Where Is My Soul? And I did a Harry Nilsson song, Remember, on that record, too, which is one of my favorite Harry Nilsson songs. And then my last proper solo record, which was in 2014, was 3, just titled the number 3 because it was my third proper solo record. And I did George Gershwin's song on that record, called Someone to Watch Over Me. And so this one, I knew I wanted to do another cover tune, and it was just a question of which one I would pick. And given the current state of affairs in the world, it just seemed like a really good idea to talk about peace and love and understanding. So it made perfect sense.
Certainly, with Kasim Sulton, and you go way back with Todd Rundgren.
I go way back with Todd to the mid-'70s. I started working with Todd in 1976 and have been working with him ever since.
And, of course, stints.
That's a long time ago. Oops.
Right, 45 years.
Yeah.
And then a stint with Joan Jett. You were a Blackheart.
I was. I played with Joan from 1986 to 1989, and I loved every second of it. Joan is amazing. She is such a great, great artist, talent, and just a real sweetheart. And I'm very, very proud of my time as a Blackheart.
And you were in Hall & Oates for a long time as well.
I was in Holland. I played with Daryl and John for another 3 years, and I enjoyed that band that I played in with Daryl and John was one of the best bands that I've ever been in, because it was just these 2 gentlemen that were in that band. T-Bone Walk was playing guitar. He's usually the bass player for Daryl and John, but on this particular tour he was playing guitar, and Bobby Mayo on keyboard. Now, Bobby Mayo is not a lot of people know that name, but he was the keyboard player for Peter Frampton.
Right.
So on Frampton Comes Alive, he played. That's his Rhodes solo in Ooh Baby I Love Your Way, which is he's just one of the most brilliant musicians I've ever worked with. And T-Bone, I cannot say enough good things about T-Bone Walk, and unfortunately they are both no longer with us. But the fact that I got a chance to work with both of those guys is that's a real career accomplishment.
Of course, another guy we're missing is Jim Steinman. That leads me into your work with Meat Loaf on Bat Out of Hell.
Yeah, Jim just passed this year after a long illness. And talk about being a very, very lucky person for me to have worked with Jim on so many projects. And starting with Bat Out of Hell 1, and finishing up with, I think we did, we were just working on the Bat Out of Hell musical that came out in England earlier, a couple of 3 years ago. And, every time that I worked with Jim was just, I treasure all those times of working with him.
A lot of people might not know that you spent some time with Blue Oyster Cult.
Yeah, most recently I was with Blue Oyster Cult from about 2011 to 2017. I've known Buck and Eric and Albert and Joe and Alan Lanier. I've known them for a very, very long time. And we toured together, actually, in 1978. There was that's how I met those guys. There was a tour that Utopia and the Oyster Cult did. We toured from one end of Canada to the other in January, which is not something that you want to do. But, of course, we did it. And we got to be very, very close during that month and a half together.
Their new record is killer.
Yeah, they have a great, great record out. It's been out for a little while now.
Yep.
And they're still out there doing shows. As a matter of fact, I'm sure they're probably playing this weekend somewhere.
No doubt. The new Cars.
Yeah, that was a really, really cool project that myself and Todd were involved with. Two of the original members, Elliot Easton, the guitar player, and Greg Hawkes, the keyboard player. Unfortunately, Rick didn't want to have anything to do with it, and so it was brought to the table by Alan Kovac, actually. Alan was the manager. Alan also managed Meatloaf at the time, and it was offered to me to take over the Ben role, and it was offered to Todd to take over the Rick role, and it sounded like a kind of an interesting thing to do. Unfortunately, which these things happen, Elliot, the guitar player, had a little accident on a bus ride where the bus stopped short, threw him into the front of the front lounge, and he busted his collarbone on a door. So we were just at about 2 weeks into a 6-7 week tour, and we had all this momentum built up from between press and a new record and the shows and the tour. And it just kind of took the wind out of our sails, and we never really got back that momentum, which was really sad, because it could have been something that we'd probably still be doing today had it taken off.
Elliot's such an underrated player.
Amazing player, and all those people fail. I don't know if people fail to realize it, but people should certainly be aware that all those songs, the guitar parts and the keyboard parts and Greg Hawkes' parts, they're also indelible to those songs. They help make those songs as memorable as they are. So those guys, Elliot and Greg, they deserve just as much credit for that music as Rick does for writing it and Ben does for singing it.
Amen. Kasim, 2021 is the name of the new record by Kasim Sulton. I want you to pick it up. If people want to follow you, Kasim, on the social media pages, how can they go about doing that?
Best way to do that is Kasim Sulton on Facebook, or you can go to KasimSulton.com. Of course, there's a Twitter page, K Sultan, or Kasim Sulton on Twitter and Instagram as well. All the usual suspects.
Very good. Kasim, thank you, and congratulations on this fabulous new record.
Thank you so much, Mark. I really appreciate you having me on the show. Thank you very, very much.
For Kasim Sulton, I'm Mark Skaar. This is a Skaar Kaard on 103.7 The Fox.